students, I welcome you all in today's lecture on the basic features of Indian Constitution. Students, Constitution plays a primary role in the framework of political system of a country. Indian Constitution also contains the provisions that work as a guiding document for the functioning of political system of India. Today, we will discuss the basic features of Indian Constitution, trace the sources and influences on Constitution of India, and also evaluate the nature of Indian Constitution in contemporary era. Dear students, the Constitution of India is one of the longest, detailed and comprehensive documents in the world. The framers of the Constitution employed a detailed process so as to incorporate almost all the provisions that were expected to be suitable for Indian society. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad, Rajendra Prasad and others played a key role in the development of the Constitution. The Constitution of India came into effect on 26th of January 1950. The basic framework of the Constitution is outlined in the preamble stating India to be a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic nation, meaning that the Constitution is simply the detailed document of provisions which channelize all the above pillars. The Constitution draws upon mainly two sources, indigenous and foreign. Some old or past patterns of lawmaking were continued while some were borrowed from other countries like Fundamental Rights and Supreme Court from USA, Directive Principles of State Policy from Ireland, Emergency Powers from Germany, Distribution of Legislative Powers from Canada, and Parliamentary Institutions from UK. While the Constitution retained a sort of continuity with its past, it borrowed concepts and principles of foreign countries that were regarded by constitution makers necessary as well as suitable for socio-cultural, economic and political system of India. The Constitution of India is a document that basically elaborates every part of lawmaking apparatus of India, focusing on fundamental rights and duties, social development, provision of rigidity as well as flexibility, rule of law, supremacy of judiciary, and etc. Soon after the independence of India, the Constituent Assembly, functioning under a modified Government of India Act of 1935, became the Provisional Parliament. Its fundamental task, however, remained that of framing the Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar chaired the drafting committee and steered the document through nearly a year of debate over its provisions. The Constitution of India, as adopted on 26th of November of year 1949, came into force on 26th of January 1950. It is embodied in a document containing 465 articles, 25 parts and 12 schedules. On features of the Constitution of India, Dr. Subhash Kashyap observes, and I quote, "The Constitution of India is a most comprehensive document. It is unique in many ways. It cannot be fitted in any particular mold or model. It is blend of rigid and flexible, federal and unitary, and presidential and parliamentary. It attempts to balance between fundamental rights of individual on the one hand and socio-economic interests of the people and security of the state on the other. Also, it presents a via media between the principle of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy." Now students, let's discuss in detail the features of Indian Constitution. The Constitution of India is one of the world's lengthiest constitutions. It is 7 times as big as that of the Fourth Republic of France. It is most detailed constitutional document. The original constitutional document contained as many as 395 articles and 8 schedules, to which additions were made by subsequent amendments. Currently, Constitution of India has 465 articles and 12 schedules. It has been the endeavour of the framers of the Constitution to provide for the solution of all problems of administration and governance of the country. Even those matters which are subject of conventions in other countries have been put down in black and white. The bulk of the Constitution continues to be increasing due to several reasons, like the need of incorporating the evolving essentialities in the field of governance and administration, social structure and cultural development, state to state and center to state relations, safeguards of rights of SC, ST and other backward classes. Moreover, the Constitution of India has borrowed most of its provisions from the constitutions of various other countries as well as from the Government of India Act of 1935. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar proudly acclaimed that the Constitution of India has been framed after ransacking all the known constitutions of the world. The structural part of the Constitution is to a large extent derived from the Government of India Act of 1935. The philosophical part of the Constitution, that is, the fundamental rights and the directive principles of the state policy, derives its inspiration from the American and Irish constitutions respectively. The political part of the Constitution, the principle of cabinet government and the relations between the executive and legislature have been largely drawn from the British Constitution. The other provisions of the Constitution have been drawn from the constitutions of Canada, Australia, Germany, erstwhile USSR, France, South Africa, Japan, and so on. The most profound influence and material source of Indian Constitution is the Government of India Act of 1935. The federal scheme, judiciary, governors, emergency powers, the public service commissions, and most of the administrative details are drawn from the Act. Dear students, the Constitution of India showcases a unique blend of rigidity and flexibility. It provides the synthesis of both. The Constitution of India is rigid as well as flexible, and Article 368 outlines the two types of amendments. Some provisions can be amended by a special majority of the Parliament, and some other provisions can be amended by a special majority of the Parliament with a ratification by half of the total states. At the same time, some provisions of the Constitution can be amended by a simple majority of the Parliament in the manner of ordinary legislative process. Notably, these amendments do not come under Article 368. Well, students, in Indian polity, there is a provision of collective responsibility. The Constitution of India establishes cabinet type of government, both at centre and in the states. The most distinctive feature of a cabinet system of government is the complete and continuous responsibility of executive to the legislature. The cabinet is composed of Prime Minister, who is the chief of the executive, and his associates, who share the responsibility with him for the formulation and execution of the policies of the government. Under the cabinet system, the head of the state occupies a position of great dignity, but practically all authority nominally vested in him is exercised by the cabinet or ministry, which assumes full responsibility for acts performed in his name. The unity and collective responsibility of the cabinet are achieved through the Prime Minister, who is the keystone of the cabinet. The real merit of the cabinet system is that the executive, being responsible to the legislature, is always being watched. The moment it proves unequal to the task, or it goes off the track or flouts the will of the legislature, it can be removed from office by successful vote of no confidence. Dear students, the Constitution of India asserts India to be sovereign, republic and secular nation. The Constitution declares the people of India to be the supreme authority. Prior to it, the supreme authority vested in the British Parliament. Even in the Indian Independence Act of 1947, through which India got independence, recognized the supremacy of the British Parliament. The term sovereignty implies that the people of India are not subordinate to any other external agency. The membership of the Commonwealth of Nations sometimes is misinterpreted as a limitation on the sovereignty of the people of India. This, however, is not correct. The Commonwealth has now undergone a sea change. It is now purely a voluntary association of independent sovereign states. Similarly, the Constitution provides for the republican form of polity in India. Prior to it, the British king was the head of the state, who owed his office to the law of inheritance. It is noteworthy that in ancient India there existed republican governments in a number of parts for about 1000 years. But in modern times, there was not a single territory where republican form of government prevailed. The Constitution also provides for a secular polity in India. Though the term secular has not been defined in the Constitution anywhere, the substance of this secularism can be deduced from various provisions of sense of absence of discrimination on grounds of religious and equal respect for all religions. Prior to it, the Government of India Act of 1935 had provided for a separate Department of Religious Affairs. Furthermore, the Constitution of India establishes a federal polity which has been created by dividing the country into the states and allocating them functions as specified in the Constitution. Like all other federations, India has a written constitution which is rigid to a large extent. There is dual polity and division of powers between centre and the states. It contains all the usual features of a federal government: supremacy of constitution, rigidity of the constitution, independent judiciary and bicameralism. However, the Indian Constitution also contains a large number of unitary or non-federal features like a strong centre, single constitution, single citizenship, flexibility of the constitution, integrated judiciary, appointment of the state governor by the centre, all India services, emergency provisions and so on. Moreover, the term federation has nowhere been used in the Constitution. Article 1, on the other hand, describes India as a union of states, which implies two things. One, Indian Federation is not the outcome of the agreement between the states, and second, no state has the right to secede from the centre. Hence, the Indian Constitution has been variously described as federal in form but unitary in spirit, quasi-federal by K.C. Vere, bargaining federalism by Morris Jones, cooperative federalism by Granville Austin, federation with a centralizing tendency by Ivor Jennings, and so on. Students, the Constitution of India adopts universal adult franchise as a basis of elections of the Lok Sabha and state legislature assemblies. Every citizen who is not less than 18 years has a right to vote without any discrimination of caste, race, sex, religion, literacy, wealth, and so on. The voting age was reduced to 18 years from 21 years in year 1989. by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. The introduction of universal adult suffrage in India was a bold initiative in the view of vast size of country, its huge population, high poverty, social inequality and illiteracy. Well, students, the Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution guarantees 6 fundamental rights to all citizens of India without any discrimination. These are right to equality from Article 14 to 18, right to freedom from Article 19 to 22, right against exploitation from 23 and 24, right to freedom of religion from Article 25 to 28, cultural and educational rights from Article 29 and 30, and right to constitutional remedies in Article 32. Similarly, there is a provision of fundamental duties. The original constitution did not provide for fundamental duties of the citizens. These were added during the operation of internal emergency from year 1975 to 1977 by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 on recommendation of Sovereign Singh Committee. The 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added one more fundamental duty. The Part 4A of the Constitution, which consists of the only one article, that is 51A, specifies the 11 fundamental duties, viz. To respect the Constitution, national flag and national anthem, to protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of the country, to promote the spirit of the common brotherhood amongst all the people, to preserve the rich heritage of the composite culture, and so on. In addition, the Constitution provides the directive principles of state policy. According to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the directive principles of state policy is a novel feature of the Indian Constitution. They are enumerated in Part 4th of the Constitution. They can be classified into 3 broad categories, that are socialist, Gandhian and liberal intellectual. The directive principles are meant for promoting the ideals of social and economic democracy. They seek to establish a welfare state in India. However, unlike fundamental rights, the directive principles are not justifiable in nature. That is, they are not enforceable by the courts for their violation. Yet, Constitution declares itself that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. Hence, they impose obligations on the state authorities for their applications. But the real force behind them is political, that is public opinion. In the Maniwara Mills case of year 1980, the Supreme Court held that the Indian Constitution is founded on the bedrock of the balance between the fundamental rights and the directive principles. Students, one of the essential features of Indian Constitution is the provision of judicial review. This provision keeps the legislative and the executive branches on the government under restraint, and they cannot exercise their authority arbitrarily. Well, students, though Indian Constitution is federal and envisages a dual polity between center and states, it provides for only a single citizenship, that is the Indian citizenship. In countries like USA, on the other hand, each person is not only a citizen of USA but also a citizen of particular state to which he belongs. Thus, he owes allegiance to both and enjoys dual sets of rights, one conferred by the national government and another by the state. In India, all citizens, irrespective of state in which they are born or reside, enjoy the same political and civil rights of the citizenship all over the country, and no discrimination is made between them. except in few cases like tribal areas and so on. Despite the constitutional provision for single citizenship and uniform rights for all the people, India has been witnessing the communal rights, class and caste conflict, linguistic clashes, and ethnic disputes. This means that the cherished goals of constitution makers to build united and integrated Indian nation has not been fully realized. The Constitution of India recognizes Hindi as the official language of Indian Union. Prior to it, English was the only official language of India. Besides Hindi, the Indian Constitution also recognizes some other Indian languages as regional languages. Dear students, the Indian Constitution contains elaborated emergency provisions to enable the President to meet any extraordinary situation effectively. The rationality behind the incorporation of these provisions is to safeguard the sovereignty, unity, integrity, and security of the country, the democratic and political system, and the Constitution. The Constitution envisages three types of emergencies, that are national emergency on the ground of war or external aggression or armed rebellion under Article 352, state emergency, that is President's rule on the grounds of failure of constitutional machinery in the states under Article 356, and financial emergency on the grounds of threat to the financial stability or credit of India under Article 360. The other feature of Indian Constitution is the three-tier government. Originally, the Indian Constitution, like other federal constitutions, provided for dual polity and contained provisions with regard to organization and powers of the center and state. Later, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992 have added the third tier of the government, that's the local, which is not found in any other constitution of the world. The 73rd Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the panchayats by adding a Part 9th and Schedule 11 to the Constitution. Similarly, the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the municipalities, adding Part 9A and Schedule 12 to the Constitution. The Constitution also provides some independent agencies to perform functions allotted to them, like Election Commission, Comptroller and Auditor General, and Union and State Public Service Commissions. Dear students, the other feature of Indian Constitution is the status of cooperative societies. The 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011 gave a constitutional status and protection to cooperative societies. Dear students, the Constitution of India is remarkable for many outstanding features which distinguish it from other constitutions. Even though there were members in the Constituent Assembly who criticized the Constitution, which was going to be adopted as slavish imitation of the West or not suited to the genius of the people. Another assembly member charged that this constitution will not prove suitable and will break down soon after being brought into operation. The main criticisms leveled against the constitution are: first, Indian Constitution is just a bag of borrowings and nothing new or native. Second, the Indian Constitution is the copy of Government of India Act 1935 and nothing more than that. The Constitution is criticized for being oversized, making it difficult to understand it at ground level. Being borrowed and oversized, the critics also assert that the Constitution of India is the paradise for lawyers because there are numerous provisions that can be subject of discussion and clarification. Another criticism against the Constitution of India is being un-Gandhian. Critics argue that the framed constitution does not contain the ideals and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. Dear students, Indian constitution is also regarded to be un-Indian as it does not reflect the native socio-cultural ethos of India. Well, students, the working of the constitution does not wholly depend on the nature of the constitution. The constitution can only provide the organs of the state such as legislature, the executive and the judiciary. The factors on which the working of these organs of the state depends are the people and the political parties. They will set up as their instruments to carry out their wishes and their policies. Thus, the final implementation part depends on the government and the people. Moreover, the Constitution is a book of laws and will be a source of rights, safeguards and duties for both the government and the people. As says N.A. Palkhiwala, and I quote, "My firm conviction is that our Constitution as originally drafted is excellent, and that is not the Constitution that has failed the people, but it is our chosen representative who have failed the Constitution. The spirit of the Constitution has been constantly violated year after years." With this, we conclude our lecture. Hope you have enjoyed it well. Thank you for watching.